Jerod, what would you say to fans that are upset that today's win prevented you guys from getting the #1 overall pick?
Look, anytime we step foot, and I've said this over the past couple of weeks, as a player, as a coach, we always want to go out there and win.
Jerod, you mentioned a couple of times this year that you guys knew you were going to take some lumps this year. You knew this was a multi-year process. Do you expect to be back next year? Do you feel like you deserve to be back next year?
For me, it's all about just this game. You know, to go back to the start, it's all about this game, and we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow never came. That was shortly after Jerod Mayo secured a win in Week 18 for the New England Patriots. Shortly after that, the Patriots firing Jerod Mayo as their head coach. The firing comes after just one season. Robert Kraft's hand-picked successor to Bill Belichick went 4-13 this year, and with the win in Week 18, moving to the 4th overall pick in the 2025 draft. For more, we say hello to CBS lead NFL insider Jonathan Jones. JJ with the latest here on this 4th opening, many to come, or more to come perhaps, as we move forward. But we are focused here on New England and the timing of this all. We just heard a man at a podium talking about dealing with this in the future being Monday. We never get to that day. What if the timing is indicative of when this decision was made for New England?
Well, what of the timing? I mean, certainly there's a lengthy statement from Robert Kraft that was put out very shortly after the conclusion of the game, very shortly after Jerod Mayo was talking about, we'll get to that tomorrow. So clearly that was composed well before. And so this was clearly something that had been on the mind of Robert Kraft, perhaps the minds of the Krafts, when you consider Robert Kraft and his son Jonathan at the helm there. And obviously this was not a season that they anticipated. They knew that they had a bottom 5, bottom 3 roster in the NFL because of the draft misses and the free agency misses over the last couple of years. But the way in which they were losing, right, embarrassing losses, 33 points at home there just a week ago, and then the miscues, missteps at the podium in talking about certain decisions that would be made or would not be made. Jerod Mayo at some time sort of appearing to have a lack of preparation is what one source had told me. And then, of course, if there were talks about a vision of the future between Jerod Mayo and the Krafts, perhaps they did not like what they were hearing from Mayo as it concerned potential staff changes. I had reported over the weekend that if he were to make it to year 2, that there would have to be more experience, more veteran leadership that was added to the coaching staff. But ultimately, Robert Kraft deciding that the decisions Jerod Mayo had made led them to this point and that it wasn't going to get any better, and so making the move now on Mayo.
That vision of the future does include the 4th overall pick. It includes Drake May. It includes what will be a projected most cap space in the NFL this coming offseason. Could look a whole lot different there in New England moving forward. We know it will at the head man position as well. Eyes immediately go to Mike Vrabel, but what's the latest you're hearing from your sources in terms of what New England might be looking for in that leader of men?
Okay, so look, the top 2 candidates everywhere, it's going to be Mike Vrabel, and it's going to be Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. You either, and I reported this earlier today, you either really want Mike Vrabel and you're all in on him, or you're all in on Ben Johnson, and that can make itself become quite clear as time goes along. We know that Mike Vrabel, obviously a stalwart for those Super Bowl winning teams in that first part of the Patriots dynasty, has gone on and over the past year been a consultant with the Cleveland Browns after his time as head coach of the Tennessee Titans. There's no question, no doubt at all, the Patriots Hall of Famer is going to be interviewed for the New England Patriots job. A lot of people wondered why they didn't interview him last year. Well, the reason for that, of course, was that Jerod Mayo literally had in his contract that he was the coach in waiting. If Bill Belichick was fired, mutual parting of ways, they moved on, that he would ascend to that role. And so, Joe, what's going to be interesting now for the New England Patriots is the Krafts have not conducted a true head coach search in a quarter century. And so we're going to see, for the first time, a head coach search in New England. They're going to have to go through the full process, and certainly Vrabel will be involved. You would imagine that they will look into Ben Johnson, and we will see if Ben Johnson ultimately would accept a request for an interview from the New England Patriots. Also interesting tonight is going to play a big role in that. If the Detroit Lions win against the Minnesota Vikings and they get the first round bye for the wild card, what you are going to see is Ben Johnson's going to be able to take interviews beginning on Wednesday virtually. And so that's when the interview would be taking place for him. You can go down the list of other top candidates, right? But those are the top two. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the New England Patriots, for the first time in the Kraft's ownership, really, truly, in earnest, take on a head coaching search.
It certainly feels like the Vrabel and Johnson dominoes will have to fall first before all others trickle down. But again, 4 head coaching openings, the latest being Jerod Mayo's firing in New England. Jonathan Jones, we appreciate you as always. Taking a look at that statement in part from Robert Kraft following this immediate firing of Jerod Mayo after the Week 18 victory. He says, quote, "For me personally, this was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. I've known Jerod for 17 years. Unfortunately, the trajectory of our team's performances throughout the season did not ascend as I had hoped. I've given much thought and consideration as to what actions I can take to expedite our return to championship contention and determined this move was the best option at this time," end quote.